Hey everyone, Pastor Nathan here, St. Paul Lutheran Church. We're continuing our study on the book of Revelation. We're still in chapter 6 today. We've been following along and sort of pausing for each of the horses, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and today we're on horse number 3. Over the last couple of lessons, we've seen sort of that there's a sort of a pattern that happens with these horses. The first horse comes and he's a tyrant. We saw that he makes war. He wants to rule and conquer. And in his kind of train, the next horse then is this red horse, blood red horse, and its rider's given a sword, and he takes peace from the earth, and there's bloodshed that comes along with the tyranny that this other horse brings, this first horse brings. And so connected together then, we'll see that as tyranny comes, there's warfare, and there's bloodshed, and there's chaos, and there's uncertainty, and peace is taken from families and from kind of countries and nations, so to expand that a little bit. So today then we've got a third horse that shows up, and there's kind of three things to notice about this horse. And I'm just going to read the text and then we'll sort of pick those three things apart. This is from Revelation chapter 6, verses 5 and 6. Now, when he opened the third seal, that is the Lamb, I heard the third living creature say, "Come," and I looked, and behold, a black horse, and its rider had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard what seemed to be a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and wine." That's taken from the English Standard Version. And there are 3 things to notice in that. The first is the color of the horse, black. It's the color of death. What follows in the train of tyranny and bloodshed is death. The second thing we should notice is the scales that are handed to the rider. The first one, the first horse has this crown and a bow. The second horse has a sword, is permitted to take peace from the earth. And then the third horse is given scales, something that one might see in a marketplace for measuring out money or measuring out goods that one would purchase with that money in the marketplace. So you've got scales. So you're already thinking, hey, there's death, and it's death connected to economy. And then you've got this disembodied voice that comes from like nowhere and says, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. A denarius kind of stands in for a day's wages, a typical day's wages. So whatever you make in a day, all you're going to be able to get is a quart of wheat. It's scarcity. There's famine going on. There's economic challenge and uncertainty, perhaps inflation happening. This conversation that's happened, or this voice that is speaking, is kind of pointing us towards there's death that's going to come as a part of economic uncertainty that is going to lead to food challenges and maybe starvation and hunger. Because on the other side of it, what he says is don't harm the oil and the wine. There's also this level of an overabundance of luxury goods that no one can purchase. So we're going to have a scarcity of necessities, but an overabundance of luxury items that no one can purchase. So don't harm them, because we still got to try to sell them and make a profit off of them. The point being, just during this time, whether because of war or bloodshed or just the way this kind of time frame between Jesus' ascension and his return is working out, because that's what's in view here, there's going to be economic uncertainty. And for some, that's going to mean unpleasantness. For others, it's going to mean death. So we shouldn't be surprised when we see these kinds of things happening in the world. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't push back against it. That doesn't mean we shouldn't help our neighbor. Obviously, as Christians, we should. But we shouldn't be surprised by it. And not only that, it should push us to do what the book of Revelation wants us to do. This revelation of Jesus is meant to push us towards repentance and faith. Not trusting the economy as our hope of salvation, not trusting food supplies as our hope, not trusting the government in order to fix it, because more often than not, when the government tries to fix these kinds of things, worse things take place. the hope is Jesus. It's to push us to repentance and faith and trusting that he's going to take care of his people, and that ultimately what that means is eternally he's going to care for his people. And that's where the comfort is. So as we're seeing these things kind of come out, we see the white horse and then the red horse and then the black horse, pushing us back to Jesus, back into the arms of the one who is over control over all of history, who in his permissive will is allowing these things to happen, but ultimately who's going to save his people. So anyhow, that's the 3 horses. Next time we'll take up the 4th horse and then sort of tie it all together before we move on to the next part of Revelation. Take care.